Hey there, everybody. I want to welcome you back to A New Thing with Cyndi. I'm your host, Cyndi Galley, and this is where we sit down with world changers, entrepreneurs, authors, leaders, storytellers, ministers, all the people who remind us that God is always up to something new. He says in his word in Isaiah, I will do a new thing. How many of you want him to do that new thing in your life? And so that's what this podcast is all about. And I am so stirred up and I'm excited about today's conversation. It really will stir your heart. But even more than that, I believe that if you open your heart, you will receive healing. You will be strengthened. You will find hope from today's podcast. And so today's guest is Jere Stille. He's an accomplished senior executive, a transformative strategist. He's a financial expert, and he's author of When Left Turns Go Right. Talk about an incredible title already. Because how many of us have had left turns? But I can say there have been so many times in my life where those left turns have not gone right. So I'm excited to bring him out. He's led billion-dollar teams at Boeing, guided schools towards growth and excellence, has poured into nonprofits and churches and youth and young people. But really what makes his story so incredible and remarkable is that he isn't just a leadership resume. It's truly his personal journey of walking through loss, battling and winning cancer, facing life's detours head on, and yet in the middle and midst of all of that, still finding purpose and faith and resilience along the way. And so we are so honored to have him with us today as our guest. I know you're going to be stirred up and strengthened in faith as well. Would you please help me welcome Jere Stille?
Hey, Cyndi. So
Hello,
good to be here.
Jere. Oh, so good to have you. Welcome to A New Thing with Cyndi.
So good to be here. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's good to have you. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, reading your story, which is so powerful, so remarkable, but there's so many stories within the book that you recently released. And I'm telling you, there were moments where I was crying, and the Lord was even doing a work in my own heart over maybe some things that I hadn't fully let go of. So I'm excited for you to share about your new book. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Jere, your life has been marked by incredible leadership success, but yet some of the hardest personal valleys a person can ever walk through. And so I'd love to start just by having you go back to the heart of your book.
Yeah.
How to go right when life gives you left turns, which great title, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to just share.
Yeah.
My book is a story of a life of maybe spanning 50 years, and where God has just been adding to incredible things that He's done in my life. And when I eventually decided, okay, it's time, it was because I heard from the Lord, said, okay, it's time, and I'll share a little bit about that. But the book was really written, I would say, targeting my 19-year-old self, when I used to believe at that time that there was no future, no hope, life wasn't worth living. And I based that based on just how life had evolved for me from a child growing up. So and I did this incredible conference. Then I walked away, and I'll talk more about that. That changed my life from that point on. And I knew at that point, when I walked out of this conference, that I could change my story. And it's easy to say that when you're 19, but I'm sitting here at 56 and telling you I did just that. And it's incredible. So you said it best. Life sometimes throws these incredible, difficult things at us. And if you're driving down the street and you go the wrong way, you take a left turn, and you're like, oh no, I was supposed to go right. But isn't it funny sometimes that in those moments are when magic happens?
Mhm.
It may be the crossroads where I meet God. It may be the crossroads. Maybe it prevented me from going down a different path that I shouldn't go through.
Mm.
I'm reminded of the story, which gave title to this book. By the way, the book is When Left Turns Go Right. The subtitle is Finding the Good When Bad Things Happen.
Love that.
And it's just perspective. So I think about Genesis 50:20 when Joseph is hanging out with his brothers, and they're like, "Oh, we're so sorry. We didn't mean it. Like we didn't know." And he's just so crystal clear, like what the enemy meant for bad, God intended for good, for saving many lives. And if
Yes.
people just grasp that maybe that left turn was by design, maybe that left turn is just exactly what we needed to be able to become the person we need in this world that God's using us to do.
Wow.
So that was kind of the genesis of the title, was that story. But you're right. There's a lot of stories here, Cyndi. There's a ton.
There's so many stories. I think what's so amazing, and before we jumped on the podcast, I felt like this whole idea of the comeback kid, because the stories you share, there was one point where you were being bullied by your live-in nanny's son, and I couldn't listen to it anymore. It first of all, it broke my heart. I'm such an advocate for kids and their well-being, their welfare, and animals. I mean, those are the two things. It's like, you want to see me come out of my skin.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So just listening to that, I was like, oh my goodness, just seeing your heart and wanting to protect your sister and just standing up for yourself, being a voice, but yet still enduring all that you endured. And I think sometimes, and that wasn't the only instance. I mean, there was story after story after story of, being bullied or abused, or, I just was like, oh my goodness. And yet you fought the odds, you fought it's like, no, you didn't fall in a statistic that so many do unfortunately fall into. And this is what I love about this book. I'm like, oh, this book needs to get into the hands of every young person who has ever experienced trauma, loss, abuse, every young person. Like, this book needs to be in schools.
Yeah.
It needs to be required reading.
I agree.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But just and of course, and I do want you to share about the conference that you went to, because I think that was so integral, and obviously the role that Bill played in that, even just him being a mentor. Our young people need mentors. I mean, there's so many stories, so many nuggets. It was so much to chew and digest. I'm excited to get my hands on the hardback.
Yeah.
Because I love taking notes and just dialoguing with it that way. Yeah. But it just such a powerful and inspiring book, Jere.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, you talked a little bit about this conference, and I want to talk about that, because you talk about going from victim to victor, and there was no doubt transformation that had to take place in your life in order for that to happen, because you didn't trust many people because of all of the things that you had went through as a young child, as a young teen, as an adolescent. So can you talk to us about this conference and how it really is what helped to flip the script for you?
Yeah, let me take you back in time and what led up to the conference. And so I am one of four siblings. My mother raised four of us. I'm the youngest of four. So there was Dawn, there's Robin, there's Melanie, and myself, and we're all about 3 or 4 years apart. My mom, my sister Melanie, is autistic. She can't do anything without a human helping her. And I'm old, so when I was young, mom was trying to make ends meet, and so she often worked 2 and 3 jobs. And to do that, that meant you needed help in the house. Dawn and Robin were certainly older, and so they could almost fend for themselves, go to school, stay after school at a friend's house. But Melanie and I stayed back. One of the things that my mom would do is she would trade a room free of rent if they were willing to watch Melanie and I. So we had to have these live-in babysitters. And that's what I grew up in. And I remember at the age of 6, coming to the front door, my mom introducing me to a woman and her son, and saying, Jerry, this is Sally and this is Sammy, and Jerry, Sammy's going to sleep in your room. Go take him upstairs, and you'll split the room and whatnot. And that's when I entered hell. Sammy was older than I was. He was a big kid, and the abuse started almost immediately. And I go into the book and the details of this, but the abuse was just so bad. And what was really difficult is that his mother was just like him, and so there was really no way around of avoiding this. And he would just say some awful things like, "If you say anything, I will kill you and your sister." And at 6 years old, let me tell you what you believe. You believe in Santa Claus. You believe in the Easter Bunny, and you believe when someone says, "I'm going to kill you and your sister."
Sure.
And I did, and it was because of the things that he did to me, and almost would take my life in certain aspects, choking me out until I was unconscious, and I would find myself in a room, after waking up. That happened, and it also, he would have this abuse towards my sister Melanie. Now, I just thought, I got to defend her. She's older than I am, but she was my little sister. She spent most of her time in a wheelchair, tied into that, so she couldn't get out. And he would do things like she's in there. So I would just insert myself into, so he would just redirect on me. So that went on for a period of time. I know it's a very difficult story to read, very difficult to write, and I'll tell you, the journey of writing that, as I wrote this book, I could never get past that. Never get past it. And I would put that book down. I was like, I can't, I would move to some other part of my life. God did some healing this October would be 2 Octobers ago, where he did some healing in my life that allowed me to be healed from that.
Wow.
And allowed me to go write this story. So my first memory of this life was, life is hard. It's difficult. There are mean people, and you got to protect yourself. And I saw the world as evil. I saw it as mean. I didn't see it as a safe place. And Cyndi, it didn't matter who was in front of me. It could be an 80-year-old elderly woman. It could be a young man. It didn't matter. Everyone was of that. And so in my young life, there was a point in time where I finally got the courage to tell my mom. A couple of years had gone by, and I didn't have the courage to tell her what he was doing to me, but I could say for what he was doing to my sister. And soon as she knew, it was it. Bam, they were out, and all of a sudden it was just like this lifting to some regard of that, but just, man, I was just really wrecked on the inside. And then these events in my young life, we had another babysitter come in, and she was nice, and she was safe to be around, and then she moved out, and then we had another babysitter come in, and as I share in these crazy stories, Cheryl was awesome. She was young, vibrant. She was almost like an older sister, if you will. And then one day, she was murdered. And then I was like, oh my gosh, life is tough. So these moments in life, as I sought to find safety, belonging, Mom worked, and so I found that on the streets. And so I found
acceptance, right? You're also looking for identity and acceptance as well.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is I'm finding people just like me who are, out on the streets, have difficult lives and stuff like that, and you form this kind of community there. But I will tell you, the streets aren't a great place to be raised. And I got into just all kinds of nonsense, drugs, alcohol, and a lot of gang stuff going around where I lived, and very dangerous. And, I've lost friends to gang violence, and I've been shot at, and I've run from people shooting at me. I mean, just this crazy story is sometimes you like, is that real? Those things that happen. Well, fast forward, I'm 19, and I'm finally at a place where another just a horrible thing had happened. A really good friend of mine died on a motorcycle accident.
Mm.
And it was, the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that was it for me. And I was like, that's kind of the last thing I need for to prove, like, what's the point? And,
Right.
and I don't go into detail in the book, but there was what I lightly touch on is there was a point where I did try to take my life, and
Mm.
and I was almost successful if somebody hadn't found me. And so I was, in the hospital for a couple of days recovering, and I came out of that, and I went to some counseling, which was amazing, which was great. Still trying to figure things out, but there was this man years ago my mom had dated. His name was Bill,
Mm.
and Bill was the first man in my life that I experienced like fun, cared for me, just
Mm.
this neat kind of like I was important, and he represented something I was not familiar with. He was
Right.
wealthy, he was in real estate, he had all these fun things, but when he learned that um, my situation, he called me and he said, and this gets to the point of this conference I went to. He says, Jerry, I want you to go to this conference, and like for me, if Bill said go to a conference, I'm going to do it because I had this relationship with him. I trusted him. I just thought it was going to be a real estate conference, and it was not a real estate conference. It wasn't until the first day I'm in this conference, and I'm like, wait a minute, when are they going to talk about real estate here? And this conference was called the Landmark Forum. Back then, it was a forum. It's called the Landmark Forum. And over a 4 or 3 day weekend, I walked away completely transformed. They taught me that there's a story in our head that we all believe, and we have the power to write that story. And I used to think life happened to me, and
Mhm.
I didn't get a choice. I sat in the passenger seat of a bus, and I was on it. I couldn't tell it. It just went. And I walked out of there realizing that, wait a minute, I'm in the driver's seat and I can actually change. I could actually change, Cyndi, I could change the bad things that had happened to me and
Yeah.
not them bad. And I actually did that. I walked out and said, like, that's no longer going to hold me. That is no longer going to be the hostage. I'm only a hostage because I choose to stay a hostage.
Yes.
And when that freedom happened, all of a sudden I gave my permission to dream. Wait a minute. If you can do that, you can change your life. You can turn everything around. At 19, I said, I'm going to go be somebody. I'm going to go be successful. And I started speaking these things that I believed could be true.
Mm.
It was so dramatic, Cyndi. It was so dramatic that the people in my immediate circle, my mom, my sisters, my dad, even, who I didn't have a great relationship with, it was from a distance, they all saw this and they thought, what just happened to Jerry?
Mm.
They saw this broken kid who was probably headed to prison or death, and they were like, "We're going to go check out what he just did," and they did. They all went to this separately, and they all had different type of these experiences, these growth things. Um,
Wow.
uh, it was powerful, and I just decided I was going to make some good decisions.
I love that. In fact, I did write down one of your quotes from that part of your book where you say, once I learned I had the power to do that, the chains that held me mentally hostage for years were broken.
Gone.
Like that was so you could almost hear the chains breaking as
Yeah.
I read that. I was like, that's huge. That's so powerful. So of course you're going to be the biggest proclaimer heralding this this
Yes,
conference that changed your life.
and it's what's really, what's really amazing, Cyndi. I've run into people in life over these many years who have this spark.
Mm.
And when I see and I learn, we have one thing in common. They went to the forum. It's absolutely,
Wow.
it's absolutely incredible. The ability of what we choose to believe. Um, uh, one of my favorite things is in the book too is great things happen twice, but
Mm.
always first in your mind. It's this idea of believing it before it happens, speaking it into existence. It is like my son plays baseball. He's 18 now. He's been playing since he was 5. And I would tell him, like, when you're at the plate and you're ready to hit that ball, like, you need to choose before that ball ever leaves the hand of the pitcher. You need to say, okay, I'm not just going to hit it, but where am I hitting it to? And what happens is when you change that thinking, your odds of hitting go skyrocketing up.
Woo!
Now, the opposite is true. If you say, I don't know if I'm going to hit that, chances are probably not going to hit it. And that simple analogy is what I learned about, like, this power of what we choose to believe, speak it into existence. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I think you called it a mental, like you had been mentally reborn,
Yes.
which is crazy, because then it's like you really are starting with a clean slate mentally,
Yes.
and I love that. So good. Well, what an opportunity for you to be able to go to that conference, and what a gift that God had given you through Bill sending you to what you thought was like a realtor.
Yes. Yeah. When are we going to
Oh,
talk about commercial real estate? What is going on here? Yes. Yes.
wow. I love that. Well, that's so good. And your journey continues. I love that at some point, then not too far after that, you started to wonder, like, about purpose. Why were you here on earth? What was the point of you being here? And you didn't know the Lord. You said you'd gone to church a few times, but you really, what I believe is you prayed an honest prayer from your heart. You want to talk about that? So I'm not putting myself into your prayer.
So 19, I'm like, I believe I can change the world. I'm going to go be amazing and do all these great stuff. And I'm out there trying to just every day make those changes. But at 21, I did all of a sudden say, gosh, if I do all this, like, then what? Like, is there something more, and what's my purpose, and why am I here? And I was curious if there was a real God.
Yeah.
But I've been to church a few times, through my young life, but I was just curious, like, I feel like there's something empty and I'm not sure what it is. And so I went to this church where I lived a few miles away. It was a Catholic church. And so half of it was in Spanish and the other half was in English, and during Mass. And there was this moment where I got to kneel and just have this prayer. I was in the back of the church and I just said, God, if you're real, could you just bring somebody in my life that I could just ask questions, that I would know more about you? Nothing happened. Got up, left, a couple of weeks go by, and I'm just still doing life. And then I bumped into this girl in the gym who I went to high school with 7 years earlier. It was my 21st birthday, by the way.
Okay.
And when I bumped into her, and I remember saying, Julie, and she said, it's Julia. And I was like, whoa, okay. And then she says, Jerry, did you graduate high school? Those were her words. And I was like, whoa. What's up with that? Like, what kind of question is that? But I understood the question because she remembered who I was when I saw her last at the age of 14. We had a Spanish class of all things together. And we would pass these notes back and forth from my best friend and one of her friends, because back then, there's no texting. It's all paper.
That was texting.
That was our texting, and you're not allowed to open it and read it either, because it had a special, like 14 fold, right, with the tuck in, and so she just remembered everyone that I had kind of was associated with didn't do well. And of course, I was on my high horse and like, are you kidding? Of course, yeah, I'm in college and I'm, working at the grocery store. Look at me. And so she was, proceeded to say, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, wait a minute, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I didn't know what to think. So we ended up going out for lunch, and we figured out a way to connect. And then during lunch, she said something that caught my ears. And she said something about church. And I was like, the antennas went up and I said, wait, church? And she talked about, oh yeah, I go to church. I'm like, can I go? And she said, no. I was like, what? Like, what? Why can't I go? Like, why can't I go? And she's like, no. And I was like, okay. So I drop her off at her house. Her mom asked, are you coming to church with us? This was a Saturday. And I said, no, because she said no. And she's like, oh, she's on the worship team. She just doesn't want you to, see her and that. That's why I still didn't get to go. But I got an invite to the next, I think it was the next
No.
week later. And I went into this church. It was charismatic. It was holy roller, hands, people jumping around and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening here? Like, what is this? But what I felt immediately was this incredible joy and this welcome. I
Mm,
wasn't sitting in the back. They had a seat right for me in the front. And I sat down there, and I have no idea what they preached on, but the pastor had a
mm,
moment where they gave you an opportunity to meet Jesus and accept Jesus in your heart. And when that happened, Cyndi, like, boom, it was that quick. I was like, that missing thing. I just felt like I get it, and I have this relationship, and that was what I was missing. And then I was off to the races.
I love that. So I love that God used your woman to answer your prayer.
Yeah, and we are celebrating 28 years of marriage this year.
Aw,
Yeah, so that's how good God
congratulations.
is. Yeah, yeah.
I love that. Well, the thing, one of the things that I just value in reading so many things about in reading your book, but it's the honesty. But you really do, you present God in such a very real and tangible way. And I mean, even for me, I'm saying, oh Lord, I had to stop a few times and even pray as I was reading through your book. And I think for anybody, someone that may not know God, maybe someone that has questions or has been curious, or to someone who's known him for many years, the way that you write your book, you just make everything about your journey just very um relatable, and
Yeah,
maybe not most of the readers may not have gone through some of the things that you went through, but I still think that the way that you wrote it, you're such an excellent writer. It just really connects you to God in such a powerful and a real way. And so thank you so
yeah.
much,
Thank you, thank you.
yeah, for just sharing him in that way. And you talk a lot about hope. The scriptures that you use are like, oh, this is so good. I want to go back and read that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
but there's a quote you share, in your book, that hope is activated when coupled with belief. Belief is a choice activated by decision. Can you unpack that for us? And I know there's more story to go, because you and Julia, you went through so many things even before getting to the point to say I do, and then
yes,
even after saying I do. So feel free to kind of pepper
yeah,
that in as well.
yeah. So I'm off to the races. We start this incredible relationship, and I realize at some point, this is the girl I want to marry. And so as we're trying to figure out our future, we start really dreaming. Now we dated for 6 years before we said I do, but during that first 4 years, uh, uh, she's so smart. She's like, hey, I just want you to be like crystal clear. We're paying for our own wedding. You cannot have any debt, and you need to save up for a house. Like, you got it? And I was like, man, I was like, what? That's not the world I came from. I came from where mom, she used 32 credit cards
Yeah.
to get by, like, let's see if this one works and this one. So this
Yep.
idea of debt, when she met me, I thought like debt was a normal thing. So I was like, all right, I got some work to do, and I
Isn't that
worked really hard.
something?
Isn't it something? She was just
Yeah.
like, somebody had, in her life said like, don't do this. And I was like, I can meet that bar. And so I'm working hard to go do these things, and we get to a point where we are engaged. And when there's this thing in life, I used to think bad things only happen in three, right? Because of course, after three things, you don't have any more bad things. And so in 1996, we are we've got our wedding plans. It's going to be a not too distant future, and I got a terrible call, and it was from Julia, and she had shared that my sister had committed suicide. It was Robin, and so she's the next one. So there's Melanie, Robin, and Dawn. And I got to tell you, Cyndi, that they gave me pause.
Yeah.
I reverted back to this story of like, man, there it is again,
Mm.
and I was just so angry. I was so hurt. I was so frustrated, and I had a thing to say to God, and I
Mhm.
did, and I said, "Forget you. Like I'm done." And Julia's a pretty courageous woman. She's like, "Hey, I love you, and I understand you're grieving, and you need to work through that. But I just want you to know, I cannot marry somebody who is not going to love God and serve." And I was like, "Okay," and I walked. And I realized that it hurts just as much when you walk away as it does
Yeah.
when. And
Yes.
and so there was this incredible moment that God gave me in this journey. So I'm trying to figure out, gosh, like what do I do in this whole situation? I'm so angry, and I had a dream one night, and in this dream, my sister came to me,
Mm.
and the setup is I'm in this kind of old church. I'm the only one there. These wooden benches, and I'm looking up, and she's in this kind of translucent, white, glowing, floating, and this radiant. And
Mm.
she's looking at me, and I'm like, "Robin, is that you?"
Mm.
"It is me, Jerry." And I said, "What are you doing here?" And she says, I've come to give you a message. And she says, God is not done with you. And I was like, "What?" And I'd asked her, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Yes, I'm great." And I was like, and I went to reach for her. And when I did, I woke up out of my bed with my hands up.
Mm.
And I realized what just happened. And it was so real that you could literally touch it. And I was a bit disoriented. I didn't understand. I'm like, "Wait a minute, this just happened. Wait, where is she?" And I realized, oh my gosh, this was a dream. And then I thought,
Mm.
wow, like God gave me this ability to hear from her in this story. And I immediately was like, I'm going to go chase God and go back. I rededicated my life. And from that
Mm.
point on, I was like, that's it. That was in February. And as we navigated, over a month or so of that, and then in September, Julie and I were at her parents' house, and the house burned down in the middle of the night. We lost everything, almost didn't make it out there. And so these two things just back to back happened. But man, my
Yeah.
faith was not rocked. And then shortly thereafter, her dad, who was 53 years old, died of cancer suddenly, just overnight. And all of a sudden, like I say, like you think, okay, gosh, these three things. That's like, life's only supposed to have bad three things. There's a lot more than that. But it didn't change. The thing it changed was our wedding date. We started pushing things out because of all these kind of things. But man, I was so glad on the day that she said I do. Because
Yes. I can
we had gone through that, and it's just we were
Mm.
married at 28. I met her at 21. That was 7 years, and 7 years before that, I met her when I was 14 in high school.
Yeah. Mm.
And God has sometimes this. I just think an interesting, sometimes comical and crazy way of like writing a story that you could never make up, and He's like, just listen and trust.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my journey going into this like relationship with her. Now we find ourselves, and we knew like from that point on, like we were just going to go serve God. And we were both working. We are going to school,
Mm.
and so that was certainly on our radar.
Wow. That's so, how do you cling to faith when you're going through all of these? And obviously, with what happened to your sister, and I'm so sorry again, even for her loss. How do you, so you said, okay, I'm done, Lord, I'm out of here. And then you came back, but then these other things continued to unfold. And how do you cling to your faith and to stay strong? Maybe you don't stay strong, but how do you still cling to your faith in the
Yeah.
middle of these things that are coming at you?
Well,
These left turns.
if you're a Christian, we have faith that this is not the last stop.
Mm, that's good.
And it's that hope we have, like knowing that I get to do this for a little while, and then it gets really good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, like, in life, all these tough things that are going on. But the moment I realized, like, there's one thing to read scripture and you're like, I hope this is right. Like, is this really true? I'm going to believe it. But I experienced something incredibly tangible in this dream.
Mm.
Like, that goes beyond the scripture. Like, it
Yes.
was just so clear. And I personally believe there are moments that God is trying to get our attention like that, whether we're listening for him or not. But I think that, and for me, that was my encounter. And it was that encounter for me that said, all right, I'm game. Like, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
I used to think, like, you're not supposed to have bad things. And as you know, in the book later on, I talk about, like, are you kidding me? Who said
Yeah.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
life is full of bad things. Here's what I believe, Cyndi. I believe there's been a battle going on for thousands of years
Mm.
before you and I were on this earth.
Yeah.
And we all of a sudden get born into it and we're like, hey, what's up with this?
Mhm.
And, and if you don't know, like, you just think, like, is this personal? Like what did I do? And
Mm.
here's what I learned is, like, in war, the tactics and strategies of generals are to attack your enemy where it hurts most.
Mm.
You want to go for the jugular. You want to go for that. Um, you know what the jugular is for Satan?
Mm.
To attack God, it's the thing he loves most, and that's you and me. And so if that's you and me, then no surprise, I don't have to do anything. Now, I think the devil has three things that he's trying to focus on. One, he's trying to convince you should just check out, like, yourself. Like, I don't even want to do this work for you. Like, life sucks. Go ahead and check out. And if he fails there, I think the second thing that he does is, like, okay, got it. Well, I'm just going to make you so angry at God that you won't want anything to do with him. And if he fails there, I think the third thing he tries to do is this, then make you believe that you have nothing to offer in God's kingdom. Like, your story doesn't matter, that you're like, you're not good enough. Like,
Mm.
that's somebody else and not you. But if he fails there, watch out. And so if you've ever played chess, this is a strategic, it's a strategy. It's 5 moves ahead. And I think, like, we walk into this battlefield dumb as ever until we start to learn and get equipped and we start to realize, oh, wait a minute.
It's
And
good.
so now when I realized that, Cyndi, when I realized that, like, of course bad things are going to happen,
Mm.
but I know the story. I know where my victory comes from. I
Yes.
know, like, I'm prepared for it and I can go into battle with it. It may not feel good. It may hurt, right?
Yeah.
But it just changes my lens now. And
Yes.
I don't see myself as the victim through it. I
Mhm.
see myself as a victor through it, just doing battle. Like, I'm not surprised at, things that don't go my way.
Mhm.
I'm expecting it, quite honestly.
Wow. That's so good. And you just give just such a real depiction of, of life and hard life. And but yet I love that you share the struggle of what it looked like for you to depend on God. What does that look like to say I'm putting my trust in him? And it's not something that comes natural and, like, oh yeah, I'm just, I mean, even every day is making that decision to spend time reading his word, which is how faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Making
That's
that
right.
decision to be in his word, to pray, or even to thank him when things don't go your way. None of that's natural. It's all the opposite. you know
Yes.
you you want to
Yes.
run from him. You don't want to run to him. And so I just so appreciate that. But then also just the honesty about talking, like, no, it's not easy. It is difficult to to put your trust in God. And it's something that takes, like, you have to be intentional about it. You
Love the
have to
word
be
intentional.
intentional about that.
You
Yeah.
really do. You really do. And it's funny. There's this kind of moment where you think you trust God,
Mm,
and then you may be tested if that's really true.
yes.
And so, it's like, as I kind of fast forward through my story, thinking only 3 things bad are supposed to happen to you. It was then 6 years later in marriage, and really just doing life, and things are going well. We're both working at a corporation. We're both In school, I was working on my master's. I was working on my MBA at Pepperdine. I was working on my master's at Divinity. We were youth pastors serving in the church, and so life was going 100 miles an hour, and feeling like I could accomplish anything. Like this is what I was born to do.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I just wasn't feeling well. It was December. I get this annual cold. It seems to be every December when we shut down from work, and it's like, oh, it's time to rest. Okay, great, let's get sick. And so I'm realizing, like, gosh, I don't feel well. I go to I call it doc in the box, which is urgent care, and I go in there thinking I've got bronchitis and I've got a lump in my neck, and I ask for antibiotics, and the doctor looks, gets an X-ray, and we leave. I leave there and says, take the antibiotics. We'll call you in a week. A few days later, I wasn't feeling any better, and I started feeling itchy. And I thought, well, maybe I'm having an allergic reaction to these antibiotics. So I stopped taking them, and then I had this like incredible chest pain that was undescribable. I was 33 at the time. I thought, gosh, am I having a heart attack? If this got to be a heart attack. And I knew like something wasn't right. And so I was in the store getting ready to head up to school, and I decided to hang out in the car and take my breath. And I called the doctor's office and I said, hey, just need to know, like, hey, did that blood work come back? Because I'm thinking I've got this chest pain here, which went away by that time. And he said, yeah, that's good. I was like, huh. Chest pain was gone at that time. I thought, okay, maybe I'm imagining this. I don't know. And I just decided anything. But what I noticed is this lump is getting bigger on my collarbone. And then the next day I've got a new one on the right hand side. I'm like, okay, that's not good. Fast forward, it's Friday, and I'm still not feeling good. And my wife is like, hey, you need to go back and get it checked out. I'm like, I'll go in tomorrow morning. I do. And now it's visible. You can look, you're looking at it and you're like, hey, what's that? I'm not feeling well. And we just go through this story, and the doctor says, hey, take some more antibiotics. We're going to do some more blood work. We'll see you on Monday. That night, Saturday night, I ended up having night sweats, and I knew night sweats can be a symptom of having cancer because we had lost her dad, and he had night sweats. And so I'm thinking, like, wow. And I end up going in early to church the next day, asking my pastor to pray over me and just say, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but I think there's a good chance I have cancer. I go back into the doc in the box on Monday, and Julie and I go in there just like, hey, what do we do now? And he said, hey, blood work looks great, but can I do another chest X-ray? I'm like, well, you did one. He says, that's okay. I want to do another one. So he does, and he comes back with it, and he says, listen, there's a huge mass in your chest. And he says, and I don't know what it is. He says, maybe it's a lymphoma. He says, but this is what I know. Like, we're going to move really fast. We're going to put things stat. You're going to go out in the front. We're going to get you into ENT. You need to get a biopsy on this, and let's just roll. And so I do that. Go out. We make this call, and I'm thinking, like, wow, okay, what are we going to do? And it's just like this is not good.
Right.
We call. We talk to Dr. Yoshipi's office, who's an ENT in Long Beach, and they say we can't get you in for 3 weeks. And I'm like, wait, hold on one second. Doctor said it's stat. And he said that he thinks it might be cancer. Are you sure I can't get in? They're like, come in tomorrow at noon. And I was like, great. So long night that night. Then we go in, we see Dr. Yoshipi, and she's like, you're fine. She's like, this is probably nothing, and we'll go do a schedule. We'll probably get you in a couple of weeks, and we'll get this scheduled. I'm like, a couple of weeks, really? Like, can we do this now? And I think it's cancer. And she's like, hold on. And she comes back. She goes, they'll take you right now. And we're like, so we got up, we drove across to the hospital, went in, and they did this biopsy, and then they said it takes about 3 days to get the results. I'm like, why does everyone keep saying these like days to happen? I'm like, really, days? Right. Long night, yeah, like just a long night.
We need answers now.
Like, let's go. So Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and I don't go back into work by this time because I'm just trying to figure things out. And I get this call, and I get a call from the doctor's office, Dr. Schroll's office, from Maria. She says, hey, you've got an appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning with Dr. Schroll tomorrow on Thursday. And I said, what kind of doctor? And she says, he's an oncologist. I said, do I have cancer? And she says, no one's called you. I said, no. And she says, well, I can't, you need to talk to the doctor. And I said, okay. She hung up, and then the phone rang again. It was Dr. Blind, who I saw, Doc in the Box Urgent Care. And he tells me, Jerry, you got your results. You have acute lymphoblastic leukemia, is what he called it. Cyndi, when he said that, my brain processed the word leukemia is you're going to die. I didn't know anyone who had ever survived that. And that was not what I was thinking. And I was like, wow, my knees buckled. I had to sit down, and I was like, well, what do I do? He says, listen, rooting for you. I'm glad you got an appointment. Wish you the best. And I called Julia, and that was a tough call. She's like, wait, no, they don't know this. They don't know. And like, we're going to get a second opinion. And, that was Wednesday. Thursday morning, we end up in Dr. Cerullo's office, and he was so good. But I was full of questions. And he says, do you know what you have? I said, yeah, I have this acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He says, yes and no. He says, it's a leukemia, but it's in the lymph nodes, so we call it acute lymphoblastic lymphoma, treated the same way. It's very aggressive, very rare. He says, and we've got to start right away. And I said, well, hold on one second. I was out in your front room, and I know that like these treatments, Julie and I want to have kids someday. Are we going to be impacted by that? He says, yeah. He says, the stuff we're going to give you, it will most likely you won't be able to have kids. And I said, well, what can I do? Can I take care of that medically first? Freeze, whatever. And he said, no, we need to start right away. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, we're going to start right now. I said, now? He says, now. You're going to leave my office. I'm just like, whoa. So Julie was like, hey, bags are packed. Like, she's always like 2 steps ahead of me. Let's go. We'll go over there. And that started an incredible journey. So there was this important night. I got down the next morning. I went in for surgery. They're doing more tests and taking bone marrow out and pieces of hip bone and just doing all this. Like, I felt like a rat in a lab as they're doing these things. And then that night they come in with this bottle, this red bright bottle of this chemotherapy. And my wife looks at that and says, absolutely not. You're not putting that in him. We need to stop. Like, let's just pause. And the nurse, she's got chemical gloves on. She's telling me like, hey, be very careful. If you get this stuff on you, it's bad. I'm like, what? Like, that makes no sense. You're putting it in me. And she proceeds to say, no. And she says, well, I'm going to have to get the doctor on the phone. And she does. So Julia leaves. A few minutes later, she comes back and she says, hook him up. And I was like, and I knew, oh, wow. Okay. Dr. Stille came in the next, that Saturday morning, and he was checking on me. And he says, how you doing? And I said, hey, here's what I want to know. How much time do I got? And he says, well, listen, like, we're going to really try. And we've got all this stuff we're doing. I said, listen, like, just tell me, like, what, if this doesn't work, how much time? He says, you got 5 to 7 days before it kills you. And I didn't realize it. This thing in my chest had grown the size of a Nerf football. It was pushing and collapsing my heart, my lungs, and my esophagus, and it was just spreading. And it was growing by the minute. Julia told me when she spoke with him on the phone the night before, and she said, I said, what did he tell you? And she says, he said to me that I can only count on one hand the number of diseases that are as aggressive as this. He didn't even use the word cancer and how rare it is. And he said, if you want to save his life, every minute counts. Wow. All right. So now it's game time. Okay, let's just go beat this thing. And the fight was on. And I want to take you to a point in time about this question you have about like this trust in God. I really was like, okay, God, hold on one second. Wait a minute. I'm serving you. Like, I'm doing all these things. I love you. And then this happens. And I want to have kids. And I know that this is likely going to impact my ability to do that. And so I was just feeling really, really wrecked by that reality. And so I was in this valley, and we all go through these ups and downs. Julia spotted it, and she's like, listen, I'm just going to schedule a massage for this guy at, NV or wherever we were going at the time. and she does, and I have this incredible divine appointment that occurs here, Cyndi. I asked Dr. Cyril this question. I said, "Can you put me in contact with one person that has survived this cancer?" And he said, "I cannot." I said, "Whoa, hold on one second. Like, I mean, I get it in your office, but go wider. How about in like this practice?" He says, "I cannot." I said, "Okay, how about like anywhere? Can you just put me?" He says, "I cannot." And I was like, "Okay, that's not cool." Um, so I just realized I feel alone. Like I'm just in this battle. Listen, there's a lot of people who have cancer, but I wanted somebody with my cancer. Quite honestly, I just wanted to relate to somebody to beat it. I find myself in this appointment to go get a massage, and it's such a rare cancer. And I tell the lady at the front, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna I just need to know that the technician is not sick because my immune system is compromised." And she said, "Why?" And she begins to tell me. I begin to tell her that I have this acute lymphoblastic lymphoma T cell. And there was only one other person in this room that I was in, and this lady to my right walks up to me and she says, "Excuse me, sir." She says, "Did you just say that you have acute lymphoblastic lymphoma T cell?" And I said, "Whoa, like, are you an oncologist?" She says, "No, but that's a very rare cancer." I said, "Well, how do you know?" She goes, "Because my husband, Johnny's a survivor." I said, "Are you kidding me? A survivor? Or like, there's no, like, really, like, I'm trying to find somebody. Can I talk to him?" And then this man walks out. It was her dad. And she says, "Dad, this is Jere, and Jere, this is my dad, John, and my husband's name's Johnny, and he had the same cancer, and he has the same cancer." And we just start talking. And I said, "Wow, thank you so much. Can I meet him? Can I talk to you?" Yes. I gave her my business card, and she goes, "You're in finance?" She says, I said, "Yeah, I'm in finance." And she goes, "My husband's a CFO." And I said, "Well, actually, I also in ministry. I'm a youth pastor too." And she says, she looks at her dad. She goes, "Oh my gosh." And she says, "My husband was a youth minister." And she goes, "Where at?" And I said, "My dad's a former Foursquare pastor of Gunbarrow, Texas. He's visiting." And so we knew, like, okay, the chances of winning the lottery could happen 1,000 times, lightning 100 times, but that was a divine appointment. So
That's right.
we held hands, we prayed. It was so encouraging. And before they walked out and I went back, her dad said something. He says, "Jere." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I don't know if you and Julia have kids, but Johnny and Casey were told they would never have kids. And they just gave birth naturally to their son, Jackson, 2 weeks ago." And I was like, it was the worst massage I ever had. I cried through the whole thing. Because I was like, what a mess. I just was full of like hope and joy.
Yeah.
And so, what I learned is, like, God is so real, even in the valleys of our life, and he hears us. But there was this moment when I was fighting for my life several times in this journey, and I'm on in ICU, and things are not going well, and they can't turn things around. They're giving me blood transfusions, nothing's happening. And I got to a point where I gave up. It was late one evening, and I just was looking at my wife, who was fast asleep in a chair next to the bed. And I just told God, I said, "Listen, I can't do it anymore. I'm sorry I failed you, and I'm sorry I just can't do it." And I looked at her and I said it silently, because I was just too afraid to tell her I'd given up. But I said goodbye to her, and I was sorry. And I closed my eyes that night, believing I would not wake up the next morning. And I woke up, and this nurse said, Jere, how are you feeling?" And I was like, "Man, I feel good. Actually, I feel great."
Wow.
And my counts had skyrocketed.
Oh.
And it was like miraculous, because everything they were doing hadn't done that. And I felt like this, like, newborn. And what I learned, what God was doing with me, is that in life, I had experienced that no one was there to protect me as a kid. And the only one who was going to protect my sister, myself, was me. And so I had learned in this relationship with God that I'll give you 99%, but I'm going to always hold on to something, because if I don't like where you're taking me, I'm going to take control. I didn't know that, but that's how I operated. And what God taught me is that, Jere, he says, that's how you operate. And I needed to take you a place that you would give full control. And when you did, that's when I showed up. So this idea, how do we trust, fully trusting God? And that was just this incredible journey he was taking me on in these chapters of my book that talks about just some incredible things.
So many powerful things. I have, save some of it even on my phone. You say, I'm going to just share some quotes. I choose not to dwell on the disappointment. Instead, I let it fuel my faith. Um, you talk about when God prompts you to do something, you can trust He has already made a way for it to be successful. You talk about do not dwell on the disappointments, instead, let them fuel your faith. You say, two most powerful tools I had access to: resilience and faith.
Yeah.
You say, what do you do when life deals a blow that you don't deserve and knocks you off your feet? You get back up and fight.
Let's
Resilience
go.
and faith are powerful tools. And then trusting God always requires a full surrender. And that's what you're talking about right now.
That's right. That's right.
Because I think it's so easy for us to say, oh, I put my trust in you, Lord, especially when things are going good or they're going your way or the way that you somewhat have planned. But all of a sudden you hit this roadblock, or you make a left turn and it's going you're on the wrong side of the road. And now what do you do? And this is when we really do need to put our trust in God. I have to tell you that chapter on surrender was just spoke volumes to me, because I think some might in my world would say, oh yeah, she's a little bit of a control freak.
Yeah. We all are, by the way. Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
as I was reading this, I'm resurrendering things to the Lord that have I been holding on to this, Lord. And I mean, it's just such a powerful journey. And then there's so much more that you and Julia endured, wanting kids. And I know time is ticking, but I could talk to you easily for another hour, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that the beauty of her God story comes in is that we believe that, like, gosh, if we met Johnny and Casey, they had a kid, maybe we could too. And we tried for after a few years of going through the treatments and stuff. And so we thought, let's go use a specialist. And we did some AI, artificial, and tried to go through that process. And it was just difficult. We lost 3 children in that pregnancy journey, and we just decided to give up. Like, okay, this isn't meant for us. But here's how God works. When we weren't trying is when it happened naturally, just like Johnny and Casey. And Julie was pregnant, and we had a son, and my son Kyler, he's 18 today. But here's the beauty. It's like God was still writing a story for this whole thing. And when Kyler was born, he was born on my birthday. And what God was telling me is like, listen, man is not the author of life. I am. And I'm going to give you such a story that when you share it, it's going to be so unbelievable. But people are going to know my name. They're going to know who I was in this whole thing.
So
I spoke existence of who my son would be, and I've got this daughter same exact way, just a miracle that she is. And we were going to try again, and she was born naturally, and she's 14 going on 20, by the way. Kyler's 18, but they both love the Lord. They both serve. They both are just on fire. And I'm just thinking, like, God, you are building a legacy, a generation of that's coming through what you've done in this life. It's powerful.
Amen. That's so good. And you know what God has done is He has taken your story, and there's such redemption to it, because I'm recalling reading in your story with your father's relationship, and it was not, the best. And so just to see you now as a father, and just letting God, your father, show you how to be a father and to enjoy this relationship, to me speaks volumes. It's so powerful. I would love for you, if you don't mind, and I do know everybody needs to buy your book, and then there's so much more to who you are beyond being an author. But you talk about moments in the book where not only was your relationship with your father strained, like you wanted his acceptance, you wanted his approval. And so many times throughout this journey of your life, you're finding, as you're saying, okay, I'm gonna tell my dad, and it was never the response that you had hoped for, that you had even envisioned. How do you get past that? How do you keep pressing forward with a parent, say, who doesn't quite believe in you or see yourself the way that you even envisioned, because once God did a new work in your life, then you began to see yourself differently. And it's like, oh, wow, the Lord's asking me to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I believe because he's called me to do it, I'm going to be able to do it. But yet to still have this, oh, are you sure about that? Because they only usually do this for people who have done this, and that, can be
Yeah.
like, oh, this naysaying moment is really just totally drenched my excitement.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you encourage somebody that might be watching that they still have a relationship like that with
Here,
one of their
here,
parents?
here's what I learned is that when I was 19 and I go back to the Landmark Farm, I learned that I had the ability to change the bar.
That's
So
good.
in life, my bar was here. Like all dads have to hit here. And every time I met my dad, he was here. And so he always was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But I learned that I got to control that bar. And what happened for me is when I walked out of that weekend, I lowered the bar because I could choose to do so. And he met it. And when he met it, I could have a relationship with him. Was it the one I wanted? No. Did he change? No, from what he would be. And over my life, I would naturally raise the bar, and Julie would be like, lower the bar, lower the bar. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Because you run into this circle, like, but that was freeing for me, is then I could still have a relationship. Listen, we're all people trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a valuable lesson from my dad that I didn't know until my sister took her life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, it was then when I called my dad, he was working for NASA, and I said, Dad, you need to come. He was in Texas, and I said, you need to come. And he says, I can't, I've got meetings. And I thought, like, what is wrong with you? He comes a couple of days later, and his then wife tells me, do you know the story about your dad? I said, no. And she said, do you know your dad's real father committed suicide in front of him when he was just a little kid? And I said, I did not know that. And all of a sudden, I realized that my dad wasn't cold-hearted. He was broken-hearted.
Wow.
And
Ooh.
he never healed from that.
Yeah.
So I could give this guy grace for
Yes.
his struggle. It doesn't make it right. I could give him grace because I think we still, as an adult, need to go fight for being a better person and a better father.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yeah.
But I could love him for
Yeah.
that. So, yeah.
May that be something that we all learn, and even just like accept that in our own hearts, because we don't necessarily know what that person has endured. And here you didn't know until you were older that your dad had actually witnessed. What a horrible thing for him to see as a kid. Jere, as we're wrapping up, I'm sure there are people that are watching who feel like their life has taken a left turn, or maybe all their life. They may say, I've been taking left turns my whole life, whether through sickness, broken dream, disappointment, disillusion, as a singles pastor for women, constantly that, when am I going to get married? When am I going to meet the one? I mean, there's just this constant, where you just feel disappointed or forgotten. What encouragement would you give to that person today? And what is a daily practice that helps you keep moving forward once you've acknowledged this and you're saying, okay, now I see this, and now this is what I'm going to do. So it's kind of a twofold question. The encouragement that you would give somebody, and then what's something that you do?
Here's my encouragement for you. My encouragement is that I really believe that you have the ability to change your life. I think there's so many of us in a world that you're waiting for something to happen in order to have permission to change. But I just believe that God has given us this power to be able to change these stories. And if you can move into that, then you can start to working yourself through healing. You can start working yourself through believing in what your future is. At 19, I didn't think I could be anything until all of a sudden I started changing my thinking. And I have this incredible career that God has just truly blessed me. But what I do know also is that every day for me, my pattern, my daily is that I'm an early riser, so I get up 4:30 every morning, and I start my day in the Word, and I spend probably about an hour in it, and I think about just communicating with God in His Word and prayer, and that is the most powerful thing that equips me um, each and every day to get ready to go into battle, is because I think we're going into battle. And then I believe that we all have this reason why we were born. It's not an accident. Like God has a plan, and guess what? You're it. You're the plan. And if we could just realize and grasp that, then let's go. Let's
Yeah.
like change that. Stop sitting in the sidelines and start believing, because God, I have this other phrase in that, like, God plus you is a majority, always.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That is so good. Thank you so much, Jerry. One of the things that I recalled reading, and I'm going to read this, it said this book is meant to be a lifeline to those who are ready to throw in the towel. I love that. The truth
Yeah.
is life is hard, but I believe there's a power inside all of us that we are all born with. And if we tap into that power, we can choose to find good even when bad things happen. And so I want to thank you so much. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't get to talk about? I know we've covered a lot and quickly in a short.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you with one story, and it's the power of
Yeah.
hope. And there was this studies done in the 1950s by a professor, Dr. Richter.
Mm.
And this study was trying to figure out, is there evidence that hope can change an outcome? And it's a bit gruesome. And the way he conducted this is rats in a bucket of water. So he would put a rat in a bucket of water, and he would time how long it took for them to drown. Kind of terrible for us that love animals.
I
Um,
know.
yeah, and it didn't take long. A few minutes would go by, and they would drown. And he tried something different. He then his next experience, he put another rat in the water, and then right before it was giving up, he pulled it out, dried it off, cared for it, and then repeated the step. And the second time changed dramatically. Instead of 15 minutes, that rat swam for 60 hours.
Woo.
And the only difference between those two things was it was introduced hope.
Mm.
And here's my take for y'all. If hope exists inside of a rat, just think about the hope that can propel us. It's absolutely incredible. So I believe if you dream it, you can achieve it. I just do.
Amen. Amen. And this is coming from someone who has completed the Iron Man.
True. Yeah.
Right. And so many things. It's like, oh my goodness, just reading about all of the things that you've done and all of the experiences you've had and leadership and executive and consulting and Boeing and in between all of the things that life has dealt to you, and then just to see you and to hear the hope and the victory that still exists in your voice. And now that you're saying, I'm going to share this story to give other people hope and let them know they are called to be the victors, not the
Right.
victim. I just
Right.
want to thank you so much. And I would love to, of course, have you back here. But what I do want to do is I want to make sure that we know how to find you. So first of all, right here, for those of you watching live stream, you just click right there in the chat and it'll take you to whenleftturnsgoright.com. And that is your book website, but it also connects you to his consulting and all of the other things. Do you want to list really quickly some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a drop into
Yeah.
the book and how to get a hold of me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also for those that are entering, looking for consulting, you can click on a link, and I bring a lot of my experiences to go help businesses transform and turn around.
Yes, I love that. So good. And then the other thing is because we want to make sure you get this book. I mean, I'm telling you, this book is not just inspirational. I feel like your book is transformational. And again, I'm like, every young person needs to read this. I don't know how we can make this happen, but I've never felt so, even about my own book. I'm
Mm.
like, no, I'm saying this about your book. Every person, every young person needs to read this. This needs to get into the school system somehow. But for those of you that are watching, you just grab your cameras. If you're watching on your phone, then obviously not. Then you can just click on the link. But just be sure to scan this QR code. It'll take you right to his book, When Left Turns Go Right. There's a hardback, there's Audible, there's Kindle. And this is just something, especially because we're already entering into the holiday season. You might know people that have just had some horrible things dealt to them in life, and this would be a beautiful gift
Mm.
to give them. And so don't just get one for you, but get one for somebody else as well. But scan the QR code and get a copy for you, When Left Turns Go Right, and get a copy for loved ones as well. So, Jere, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was just such an incredible time. I'm telling you, even here talking again, my eyes have just been filled with tears on a number of occasions. And I'm just so thankful to you for sharing the hardship that you went through, but also how God met you right where you were at. And that's what he wants to do in every person's life. He wants to meet us. We have to call out to him. And that's one of the things that I see that you've done time and time again. You showed us even in the book how you surrendered, and the times that you and Julie would come together and the two of you would pray, and how God even met the two of you prophetically at other places at divine appointments. And there's just so much in your book. And so, friends, I'm asking you to go visit his website, scan the QR code, and then if you need some business consultation, then this is your go-to guy as well.
Cyndi, thank you, by the way, for doing what you do and creating a space that you can just touch people's lives. And I love the title of your show.
Oh, praise God. Thank you.
What a powerful, hearing you say that was just so impactful for me. A big shout out to Pat LaBeouf, who I love dearly.
Yes.
Who connected us. So if you're watching this, Pat, thank you.
We love you, Pat. We were talking about you, girl.
That's right.
You're amazing. She's incredible. And we have both been so blessed by her. But yes, she introduced us to each other. And so, Pat, thank you again so much. You know, guys, if today's story that Jere has shared, if it's touched you, impacted you, jolted you, just stirred up your curiosity, you are going to want to dive deeper into his book, When Left Turns Go Right. It's raw, as you can tell, it's very real, and it's so full of hope and practical wisdom for anybody navigating through the detours that life hands us. And so be sure to visit his website, grab that copy wherever books are sold. I believe we have Amazon on his website and Barnes & Noble as well. But I do highly encourage you to visit his website. Even if you get the book, still do me a favor and go visit the website. And again, share this episode. Share this life-giving episode with those in your world that you know needs it. Jere, again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your heart, your story, what God has done. I know there's more territory for you and for Julia and all of the things that God has for the two of you. But just thank you so much for your transparency.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you, Cyndi.
And your wisdom. Yes. Amen. Well, we're excited because we know that no matter how many left turns, God wants to do the right turn in your life. And so, and he's really the only one that can do it. And Jere will tell you.
That's right.
All right, you guys. Thanks, Jere. Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. We'll see you next time on a new thing. All right. Bye-bye. Hey, help us get the word out about our show. Subscribe today, right now, to A New Thing Live.